Tomorrow People, Episode 10, The Citadel. After the mid-season finale, we're coming into things. Um, Steven is, he's found his father sort of in purgatory pretty much, and he gets some information from him, and it's, one name. And one of the other, I guess, tiny bits of information that we get, it's sort of information, sort of not. Steven's father tells him, you have to find my body. You have to find my body, and somehow, that'll help, him come back to life in some weird way, or, basically not come back to life, but, travel from purgatory to, our dimension and get back to his body. So I'm definitely excited to see how in the world that's going to end up playing out. If it even ends up playing out in this season, I feel like, the main story of the entire show is Steven and the Tomorrow People, looking for his father. So I doubt we'll get, that bit of information, or, him actually finding his body in this season, or, even next season, maybe, who knows. But it was interesting to know, that's what he told Steven, like, you have to find my body, find this guy, to help you find my body, pretty much. And so the team goes to look for this guy, and, they can't find him, pretty much. Steven, comes up against the typical firewalls of working at Ultra. He can't get information because he doesn't have a high enough level of clearance, and he's kind of been introduced to the new AI system that kind of replaced. I believe it's Tim is the name of the AI system that John stole. So he goes up against that, and his uncle gets warned that he's looking for this specific guy, and then before he can really Jedediah can really dig into why Steven's looking for that, they find out that this specific guy, tomorrow person, actually escaped what's known as the Citadel. And this guy is incredibly powerful. He's also really crazy and on edge. And I thought the first guy they showed, like this, the guy who, Ariel, or however they pronounced it, he's really crazy and he's on edge, and he's looking for his wife. And when he escaped, one of the craziest things that happened was when the cops are like, put your hand to the cage so they can put the handcuffs on him with the T-chips. When the guard goes up to the second guy and he like puts his hand through, and he chopped his own hand off to help this guy escape, he's like laughing like the Joker or something. I thought, this guy is insane. And then you really see it's not just him. The guy who escaped was kind of crazy too, and the little girl who ends up escaping, they go through this insane mental torture. It's not just, they're strong people, so they're prisoners. They're strong people, and then they get tortured and experimented on. They're the people who get captured. And, unfortunately, they keep their powers because they experiment with their powers and do all these crazy things to them, and it makes them lose their minds. And, when the guy finally reveals, or finally finds out that his wife remarried and stuff, and that he was in there for 3 years, he was kind of freaked out about that because he had no idea that it was even that long. And it just shows how insane the torture is that those people have to go through. So it was really interesting to see this guy who was tortured for so long. These 3 years he escaped, and he's going around like he was attacking the woman who lived in his old home, and he was just freaking out. But he was obviously really powerful. And one of the things they did that was really, really good, and I didn't know it was going to be as good of a build up as it was until the end of this episode, was him being strong enough to push Steven out of his own mind, where when he tells John and Carr that, Carr says that only some of the strongest people can do that, or maybe John said it, but one of them said like only the strongest people can do that. And what they do with that, and it was foreshadowing, which of course you don't know unless you watch the whole thing, but that was foreshadowing the end of this episode, where the new guy who Steven's mom is actually dating is a tomorrow person, and he's so powerful that he pushes Steven, out of his mind. And I thought that was amazing. I wasn't thinking anything about that. I thought it would just be a typical thing where he's like, crap, I have to deal with this guy dating my mom, and I know my dad's alive, and it's, it would mess with him, and that's all I thought it was going to be. And then in the end of this episode, it was a great addition to the show just to see who's this guy. Maybe he's a good guy, who knows, but it instantly, I just assume everybody's a bad guy in the beginning, especially when they're that powerful. And, it's kind of good to assume that no one's your friend in the beginning because you don't want to just instantly dive in and share all your secrets and stuff. But it's obvious that this guy is a tomorrow person, and I think you'd kind of have to know someone's going into your head to push them out. So I'm pretty sure he has no questions about Steven and his powers now. Steven tried to go in his mind, and he pushed him out. So this guy does know, I assume, and I'm really excited to see just is he just a random guy who happens to have powers, and so he's just trying to live his normal life, or is he kind of in there because of Ultra, and maybe he's some other crazy plan that Jedediah has, who obviously shows he still has his crazy suspicions. And one of my favorite parts about this episode was after Steven was shot, when he's like, he comes and he's like, how are you feeling? He's like, it's fine, nothing I can't handle. And when he knows, that Kara is gonna go after the Citadel, he tells that to Steven, and Steven obviously has a certain look, and he's like, you're hurt, why don't you like double the dosage or whatever? And he does that to knock him out because he doesn't want John and Kara to be warned. And it was a really good scene to me because he did it, and obviously he did it because he has his suspicions, but he did it in a way that's very Jedediah like, where he's subtle about it, and he acts as if it's because he just really cares about his nephew, which he couldn't care less. I'm sure he'd kill him himself if he actually found anything out, but actual facts and proof. But he has his suspicions, and in the end of this episode, Steven does kind of confront him about it, but it's just not gonna go away. Like, we're gonna see that continuously throughout the rest of the series, I'm sure, until it eventually is just put out there, like some actual evidence is just right in Jedediah's face and he can't deny it. But for now, he's gonna have his suspicions, which I really enjoy because it always makes for really interesting moments to me. Sometimes it's sort of his flat pan humor that I enjoy, and other times it's some of the interesting subtle things he does just to get what he wants, like knocking Steven out and acting as if it's just so he's not hurt or anything, even though he doesn't really care. So I enjoy that about the episode. Also, one of the biggest things, John not being the leader anymore, was a huge moment in this episode, and Kara taking over. It really pushed her like kind of to the edge, and she went really really far. And one of the things she was going to do at the end of this episode was basically take Morgan to Ultra and reveal the fact that Jedediah was in love with a Tomorrow person. And she even said to John, like, I have to take her there to prove to Jedediah I'm willing to take things as far as he is. Like, he shot, Ariel in the head, and it was like nothing to him. I have to prove I can do the same type of thing. And it was really interesting to just see her kind of sort of lose it almost. And it seemed like it was just out of nowhere, but it's just over the episodes, this guy who's been doing this for years, and then, her kind of being forced to take leadership because John decided to tell everyone about Steven's father and how he actually killed him, and he'd been lying to everyone. And all these things are happening, at once, and she's like, well, I have to be a good leader and have to, really push. And also, it was their first lead on the Citadel, so it seemed like it all made sense, but in the end, just things didn't work out the way they wanted them to, as they generally don't. And, she's kind of doubting herself, but I think it'll be interesting to see her kind of build herself back up and realize that she can be a really great leader too, and that just because John was a great leader, it doesn't mean she, can't be one, because she was obviously like second in command. There's no reason she can't be a great leader too. So I'm excited to see her kind of step up over time and realize it was just a bad first mission. I mean, they kind of, they're up against a really intelligent guy, and that's just going to happen from time to time. So I'm excited to see her kind of build herself back up, from this episode. But overall, I thought it was an amazing episode. Nice little hints they dropped in. Like I said, the end of the episode really has me interested. Also, one of the things they did before Jedediah actually shot Ariel, he was trying to go in his mind. It seemed as if he wasn't having a single issue at all. I don't know if he was wearing like, one of the watches, or had like a T-chip on him or something. But if that wasn't the case, then he has some sort of mental block where he has like zero problems with people in his head, but I don't think that's the case because when he was actually captured, he mentions how he has the training and stuff, so maybe that's all it really was because he was like just starting to get into his head. And even with that guy being incredibly powerful, Jedekiah for some reason just has so much, mental training, I guess, that he's able to go up against it. But that was really interesting to see. Like he had zero problems. He wasn't like blinking or shaking or anything like that. He was just like, he's trying to get into my head and mess me up, and he just pulled the trigger and killed the guy. So it'll be interesting to see if that was a little hint or if it was just, they're just kind of reiterating the fact that he does have that type of training and he can obviously really use it even against powerful people. But that was just one of the great scenes in this episode. So comment below, let me know what you guys thought. Favorite parts, least favorite parts. And I guess the one question I can definitely ask is, what do you guys think is going to happen with the guy at the end of the episode who's dating Steven's mom? Do you guys think he's going to be a good guy, bad guy? You guys think he'll kind of stay neutral? Where do you guys think that little storyline is going to go in this show? Comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.